I didn't want to plan anything beforehand until I met, the collection. As we came closer to the visit and I had been looking at some of the images, I started to formulate some ideas about what would go into the work. This would not be the first time, though, that I've made work in response to items in a collection from my home community. It's not so much, I guess, spending time with these items that I'm inspired by a specific one, but just the overall sense of them having been collected, thinking back to the time where, that huge transition of life, of when somebody was still using that rattle, and it would just seem like, thinking back, it is like a blink of an eye that things changed. It brings back really physically your history as an Indigenous person, and it's not that it reminds me, because it's a part of my identity, my being. But when you see things, and you can't help but imagine, like who was walking in in those moccasins, or who was using this rattle. I really believe that there's still life in them. You begin to imagine, those activities for that individual. But of course that's imagination, because these are, there's tags, and there's not an image I can say, like, oh, I saw this picture of this person once, and let's, try and connect visually. And so again, with this work that I'm planning, it's, I want to deal with the whole collection as a unit, and just do stuff in the gallery that will speak to the idea of maybe not so much the nameless, because so many of these do have names, but maybe do something to show my part in it, that I've met them. When I started making art, it was, I was working with who I was, because to me, that was the resource that I had, that I was free to use. My skin, the land around me, and then I found out this is what I do. This is how I communicate as an artist. It's never really deviated from like using things that are that I feel a connection with, or I want to spend time with. How am I going to use dried grass to realize this, this concept that comes to me. It's I like to tell people that if you think that the prairies are, just flatness, just grass, yeah, there is that, but there's also beautiful river valleys, buttes, cliffs, mountains. When you're working with something like the landscape, there's no way that you can hone in on one thing and say, okay, well, this is the very specific information about this piece of grass or this piece of land. Like the sides of cliffs or bluffs, that really chalky white gray sort of, and it looks like old skin almost. There was a time when these weren't on shelves, or they weren't locked away. They were full of life. It's like maybe hearing of a long lost relative that you never knew about. So we right away connect physically to what, even if they're now called artifacts or objects. They stop being objects when you translate, or when it's transmitted in your mind that, okay, there was a connection. And there is still a connection.